I was gonna do one this morning when I had my coffee, but I was smoking this really nice Cuban cigar. But I put on some reggae music, and I was like, you know what? I'd rather just sit and listen to music. So then today, I figured I would when I smoked this Lunatic by JFR. This is a Lunatic Habano. Excellent cigar. This is made by Aganorsa Leaf, and it's really come up as one of my favorites. I also love a closed foot like this, so they call it a shaggy foot, because then I don't have to light it and marry the binder to the filler. I can just smoke it right out of the jump. All right. We are off, and now the sun is like right in my eyes. Let me move this way. So, like I said, it's Sunday. I just finished doing all my errands. I had to run to, how's the audio, by the way? Is any audio coming through? I had to run to Costco, Market Basket, and Lowe's. And then I had to eat. So today I had a 3 eggs sunny side up, salmon, sauteed salmon, and then bacon and a steak. It's good. All right, yeah, hey now. Okay, Emily says it's great. Good. All right, good. Yeah, so this is called the Short Titan. I think it's a 60 ring by like a little under 5. And like I said, it's the JFR Lunatic Habano. And it's a really great cigar. It's definitely I have 5 more coming in the mail on Tuesday. But really good. So I got 3 of my guitars back from Wolf, my repair guy. He put bone nuts on them, and they're playing great. They're playing awesome. And then the guy who owns his shop messaged me just to thank me for the business. I mean, I've been going there on and off because obviously I wasn't going there when I lived in Los Angeles. But since I think 1986, I've been going to that place. Um, and So he reached out to me, and I reached out to him about my JCM 900 2501. You know, I set it up now in my lesson room, and I'm going to let my students play it, but I was messing with it, and I was like, man, the EQ really doesn't do much. So I just want him to do a whole run over the whole amp, see if the caps are good, and if the EQ isn't any different, I need the amp made a little brighter, because I read somewhere that EQ is basically like when you take the tone down, it's a loss, you're taking it at a loss, but then the amp needs to be brighter. Because to me it's just, and maybe because I play Fenders for so long, but that Marshall tone for me just sounds a little too, I just like it a little brighter. Because I don't like to play full gain out. I play with the gain barely on, and that's the sound I like, but I don't want it to be this darker sound. But anyways, was that Ricky that just asked me if I've seen the Fender model? That shit doesn't interest me. Gear doesn't interest me, really. I gotta tell you, I'm not interested. Yay, they made a modeler. Who cares? Every video that I've done, I've used the Mustang 100 and the Mustang 40. I paid $100 for it. It does everything I need. You know what I mean, for a practice thing. And as far as going out and playing with modelers in a live situation, I've done it. But, you know, when you set them up and you set it up at home and then you go play at a PA at a place, you don't know how the guy's PA is or how it's set up, and you're just in for a load of disappointment. Ben Dejo, no, he didn't. I don't know what his deal is, and personally, I don't care. Somebody asked me if I was bummed out about it. I was like, not at all. I could care less. Like, he reached out to me and wanted to be on the show, and I even said to him, have you seen the show? You sure you want to be on? And he was like, oh yeah, we could do it October 4th. And I said, fine. And then I said, listen, for me to advertise it, it's just next week. Send me a couple of pictures. and I'll remove the background and put you into my logo. So he was like, okay. So he sent it to me right away and was like, I was looking forward to it. Never heard from him again. Personally, I don't care. Uh, I haven't heard from him, and I don't know what excuse you could come up with because I called him and I sent him an email and a text. He didn't get back. So whatever his deal is, I don't know. I don't care. I won't have him on again, but I just don't care. I mean, honestly, um, there's so much talk about Van Halen on the internet, and I loved Van Halen growing up. It's almost the same thing for me with Kiss. Like, I was a huge Kiss fanatic, but when I see people go crazy and they're still going crazy over, like, the music from the Elder album, then I've known they lost the plot. There's no way to defend that stuff. It's terrible. You know? Well, yeah, people, it's just there's an over, I think I saw Steve from Boston. It just came up in my feed. I didn't watch it, but it said something like remembering Van Halen, like 3-year anniversary of his death or something. And I'm just like, honestly, Christ. I mean, I don't know Eddie. I knew a few people that knew him. Some say good things, some say bad things. I'm not going to say anything because it's hearsay. I only hear what other people have said to me about him. And I don't care. It's like, people take a snapshot of somebody, how they were in whatever mood they were in that day. It doesn't matter. Point is that I don't know him. Do I love his music? Yeah, up to about 1984. I don't really care for 5150, that whole sound and the Van Hagar thing. To me, it's a different band, and I just don't care. You can sit there and say, oh, well, Eddie, the tone. Well, the tone stinks on those records, I think. Oh, that's a Saldana. Who cares? I mean, it's just, there's so much ado about nothing. It's good, but is it the best thing that came out in 1986? I don't think so. In fact, 5150 wouldn't make my top 10 of albums that came out in 1986. I don't even think 1984 would come out in my top 10 of 1984. And Dive It Down definitely doesn't make that year's top 50. Fair Warning, Women and Children First, Van Halen 2, Van Halen 1. It was a good run. It's a strong run. Anyone that can run 4 albums like that in a row, that's a class band. Anyone that wants to tell me Dive It Down's on the level of the first 4, you're going to have a great time bringing that to fucking court. No way. But, it's funny because a lot of bands have, 3 solid albums in a row. I think maybe you could argue Rush had 5. I'm not a big fan of 2112, but when you get to A Farewell to Kings, Hemispheres even gets better, Permanent Waves, Moving Pictures, and then into Signals. And then Grace Under Pressure to me falls back to not as good as Farewell to Kings. So that's a 5-record run. I mean, not many bands have that. Say what you want about Led Zeppelin, but I think every album by Zeppelin's awesome. It's a different, the band's in a different place. Every album has a different sound, except maybe 1 and 2 are a little bit similar. I do think 2 is better than 1, but I do think the albums are pretty similar. 1 might just be a hair more raw. But anyways, they had a great run of records. The Stones had a great run of records from, like, I would say, Hard to Argue, but from Let It Bleed to Tattoo You's a pretty great run. Although maybe Goat's Head I'm not that big on. And I'm not a huge fan of Exile on Main Street. I know a lot of people are. I think there's a great album in there. I think there's an album of unbelievable stuff. And then there's some filler. And which is why I don't give Exile the love. Whereas, because you could look at an album like the double album, Physical Graffiti, And I don't think there's a throwaway on that. I love every song on that record. Yeah, it's good. Last night we played at Martini's, and it was the three of us, Jim and Kenny on percussion, and it was an absolute zoo. Last night was just so packed. It was crazy. That today I'm just glad to relax and do nothing today. Although I'll probably work on some. I'm doing a gig at the end of the month on bass for a friend of mine, and he just sent me this long set list, and I'm like, ugh. I'm two or three of the songs I got to really look up and just see how to play them, listen to them a few times. I mean, when I say look up, I don't even know the songs. And then most of it is just blues rock. Little warning to anybody that I told this cigar. This is a strong cigar. It's a definite full body, which is the way I really like them today. I was looking up to see if I could find more Todos Las Dias, and they're just gone. Some company had one box, so they wanted 160 for it. I'm like, no, not for that. 110? Yeah, 160, no. I played my mandolin last night, yeah. Finally got it in tune. What happens is I try tuning in the place, and everybody else is like starts messing with their tuning, and then it's like, well, I can't even hear anymore. I didn't see that last comment. Oh, I was taking my walk and thinking about how great, but seriously, folks, is, and you could even lose. Life's Been Good. Yeah, I've said that about that album. That Life's Been Good is probably the worst song on the record, and it's still a fantastic song. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's a great song, but that album is so great, especially that side one. But side two has Tomorrow, which is great, and that instrumental. I mean, there's so much good stuff on that album, but it's a great record and definitely unsung. You know, not many people talk about it. Is anyone interested in the PRS? What PRS? You mean the one that I had and sold already? Yeah, someone was interested. Yeah, it's gone. And now the question is, do I buy an amp with the money? Because that was the whole point of the initial selling of those guitars, was because I didn't want to go out of pocket of buying an amp. Or do I hold off? I was looking at vintage sound amps, and for the longest time, and Ryan could probably tell you guys, I was looking at the Princeton 20 from Vintage Sound Amps. And the more I looked at Fender amps and vintage Fender amps, I really like the AB763 circuit, which is the Vibe Reverb, or the Deluxe Reverb, or the Tremolux. And I saw a used Tremolux that I was interested in. But then I'm like, I'm going to have to get the whole thing recapped. And even for the price of what they're selling it for and getting all the work done on it, it's still a really good price on it. But then I saw that Vintage Sound Amps makes what's called a 22SC. And what that is it's the AB763 Deluxe Reverb, but put into a single channel amp instead of having it be the two channels. And then the tremolo has an on-off for it, which is called the Diaz mode, and you could basically take it out and get all the gain you lose by going into channel 2. So I'm like, that amp is something special. And that's like perfect, because it's like, it's small like a Princeton, but the sound of a Deluxe. And I do like the sound of a Deluxe a little bit better, because I do like that scooped, cleaner sound. And then if I want to add mid and stuff, I'll put a pedal in front of it. But the Princeton I find a little harder to clean up. So that's what I've been thinking about, the 22SC from Vintage Sound Amps. I missed that last comment. I'm sorry. Hold on. Yeah. Yeah, and somebody close by to me is selling a vintage modern Marshall, and so that's something that I'm also looking at, if I can get it down to, if I can get them low enough on it. Yeah. I mean, if something is like, working at a shop for years, you do understand the fact that people save their money and they really just want a beautiful instrument, something their heroes had, even though they're bedroom players. And if they save the money or they make a great living and they can afford it and it's not a big deal to them, I have no problem with that. In fact, we used to sell a lot of PRS to doctors and dentists. I mean, they make beautiful guitars. And I've always said that eventually they realize they don't need it or they'll sell it, and that really floods the market with PRS, the used market on PRS. I mean, you can find one 10 years old that's mint. Try to find a Strat mint 10 years old. You're gonna be like, no, people play them. So I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem when people are reviewing gear. And it doesn't even matter if they review gear. It almost doesn't even matter if they play well or not. Because if they play well and they play a guitar, they're going to be like, this guitar's great and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean I'm going to like it. Doesn't mean you're going to like it. It means the reviewer likes it. And if they can't play, well, then it's just like, well, it doesn't sound good to me when you play it. Maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. It doesn't do anything except show the guitar. It's like guitar porn. It just shows the guitar. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, people want to see what the guitar looks like, but if it's a Stratocaster and they're like, it has a slim C neck or it has the 60 C neck, I don't need to play it. I know what the guitar feels like. I've played a billion Strats. I've played them all. I ran a shop. We carried every custom shop, so I played them. I know what they feel like. You're not going to tell me it because you put a different pickup in it that it's now a new guitar, and that happens a lot, and I just don't care. That's why all my Strats have Warmoth necks. They're super wide, compound radius. I can't see a thing now. Compound radius and stainless steel frets. They feel the way I want to feel. Yeah, that's the other thing. Everything at noon. Let me play this and show you everything at noon. It's like, why don't you just make it sound good in the room that you're in, and then let me hear make it sound good. How about that? Forget about what noon sounds like. Just make it sound good. You know what I mean? Because if you look at Hendrix or you look at Van Halen and you say, well, that's what a Plexi sounds like. Yeah, well, if you went to go demo a Plexi, you'd have all the knobs at noon. These guys are playing every knob dimed. Or you look at a country guy like Guthrie Trapp, who's playing a Fender, maybe a Princeton or any small Fender, and he's got the treble dimed and the bass and the mid almost completely off. And he's like, this is how I go and record sessions with a little bit of hair on them. Well, you're not going to figure that out watching some guy show you a Princeton amp with all the fucking controls set at 0, strumming a fucking E chord. That's for sure. What you're going to do is you're going to stare at the amp on your TV or on your computer, wherever you look at these videos, and you're going to be like, oh, that amp looks cool. How does it sound? Well, it sounds like a fucking Princeton through whatever microphone he has and whatever mic pre he's going through. Did any of you guys see Jim Lill's video on microphones? That's a great one. And very true. Very true. What the hell? There was a cloud, I guess, there. I guess there's more coming. But I brought more. I brought 3 more guitars to Wolf to do to change the nut. And when I get those back, then I'm going to bring over my Marshall and have them go through it. Because I really like the 2501. And what's funny is the more I play it, the more I think the best sound out of that amp is with the gain at 12 o'clock, but the clipping diode turned up a little bit at 9 o'clock, between 9 and 10, 9:30 we'll call it. And that clipping diode sounds good in it, man. It sounds like an angry Fender. It's great. That's my tone. I love that sound. That's how I have it set up right now. And if you sit there and slam it with like a humbucker and play chords, like you can get the all right now type of sound out of it. But it's definitely not dimed. And I know if you dime it, you're going to get that, the dime the gain, you're going to get that 80s metal sound. If you take the clipping diode out, basically it becomes like a 2204 because it's a 50 watt. But either way, it's a great amp. I just think the EQ doesn't do enough for me. It doesn't. So I'd like somebody to mod the EQ for me. If it's in fact the EQ that's the amp is running perfectly. If the amp isn't running perfectly, if it needs a filter cap or something, then maybe the EQ will change. That's my gut feeling, is that the amp is sounding darker than it should, because those amps are fucking bright monsters, brittle monsters. And so I'm assuming that there's a cap that something needs to be done. Either way, I'll get it done by, I'll bring it to him probably at the end of this month and have it back by mid-November. It's funny, the last couple of weeks, I've gone to a few open jams as a favor to the people that are running the jam, just because to show some support and whatnot, and they're friends. So I go, I just jump on whoever's amp it is, and every time I do, someone always comes up to me afterwards asking me what I thought of their amp. They're like, "What'd you think of that amp?" I'm like, "It's fine. I don't know. It sounds like me when I play through it. Sounded fine." A couple of times I walked up to the amp and changed the settings immediately. And one guy said to me, comes up to me afterwards and he's like, "You can change the settings if you want." I said, "Oh, you haven't noticed? I've changed everything on this amp." Because the way the tone was when I plugged my guitar in, not great. But I dialed it in and he didn't care. He was like, "Oh, cool." And it sounded great. His amp was good. It was like I'm trying to think what it was. It was like a Fender platform. I don't think it was a Fender. Could have been. Well, the 57 is a pretty flat sounding microphone. So it really replicates what you hear pretty close. Like it doesn't really, if you're using a 57, you can really get a lot more. You can EQ it when it gets in and make it sound how you want. Is it the best microphone? I don't know. I've used a 421 or a 441, a Sennheiser. And anytime I use, when I mic guitars, my personal experience is I like to put a 57, and then I also like to use a ribbon mic, preferably a 121 Royer is my ribbon mic of choice on an amplifier. And you keep them pretty close, and then you can basically use the faders for the final mix of how you want it. And then you really don't have to EQ much. I find that you get what the amp sounds like in the room when you do that. Some guys just use a 57. I mean, I tell people all the time, if you have a little home studio and you want to work, all you need is 2 microphones. I would suggest that you get yourself a 57, which costs you $100. And then one that might cost you a little money is try to find yourself a clone of the U87, a Neumann U87 clone. Something like a large diaphragm mic that has that type of sound. And with those 2 mics, you can record any album you want. That would sound, you can get record quality out of that. And you can get it out of anything. It's really up to your ears where you place the mic, the sound. And, for me, I don't like when I produce stuff, I don't like to compress the piss out of stuff. And I don't like to, I want the thing as close to where I want to hear it as I'm recording it, as opposed to fixing stuff in the mix and being like, well, I got to pull this out. And in fact, I'd rather, I like to have it pretty much where it's set and where it sits. It's, and for my process, it's just easier when I'm recording, because then when I lay stuff on, I'm like, okay, I hear what I'm going to have to pull out of in that, and that's fine. Or if I have to, But it's nice when you have things where you want it to sit. So having a wide array of microphones is always good. I mean, there's only been a few times in the studio where I asked an engineer to change the mic because I just did not like the way the mic sounded. And when I went back in the room, I liked the way the room sounded and the instrument, but not the way it sounded through the mic. So we had swapped mics until we found one that I liked. Yeah. I remember that company Marshall. They made MXL microphones. I think the company was Marshall. They're a distributor. God, they also I think they were the distributor of Megami cables as well, but they did MXL mics. And MXL had a U87 clone that was fairly decent. I mean, you could use it in a studio at home, and that with a 57, and really, get some good recordings. Now, clearly, you're going to need more mics if you're miking your own drums and everything else. Um, I once got hired by Danny Cimbello, who's Michael Cimbello's brother. Danny wrote the Neutron Dance. He wrote a couple of other songs, and I think he wrote a song for Celine Dion a few years back. But anyways, Danny did a record, and he had seen me. Someone hired me on a project to go in and drum replace somebody's kit because the drums were recorded just so terrible that I went in and basically it was for one song. I went in and drum replaced the whole track for him, and it took like 3 days. It was brutal. It was a lot of work. And so Danny had heard that track and reached out to me and wanted me to come to his place. He had an album. In fact, the album came out. I think it's called Revolution of the Spirit. But he came over. I went over to his place. He was in the Marina at the time. And I went and listened to the drums. And I was like, these drums are great. I don't understand what you don't like about them. I thought they sounded great. And I said to him, what is it about these drums you're not liking? And he's like, I just think they sound like they don't sound good. And I'm like, the recording's there. So I tweaked it with compression, EQ'd each thing separately, went in, and I think I was there for 3 hours. He went out and did some errands and came back 3 hours later. And I basically saved like the settings on the buses so he could, he listened to it and he was just like, oh, fuck, you just saved me. And he loved it. He was like, the drums sounded great. I'm like, yeah, they were there. And meanwhile, the drummer on the track was Vinny Colaiuta. So it's like, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? It's like, Vinny's awesome. Like, and in fact, the reason I got to work with Vinny was Vinny did a record for a guy named Eugene Maslov. They called him the Mad Russian. And if you look up a song called Nardis by Eugene Maslov, that's Vinny in one take. My buddy was the second engineer. And I guess that they weren't close miking the drums, and I guess they were recording it in a way that was sort of unorthodox. And my engineer didn't agree with the way they were doing things. And neither did Vinny. So Vinny asked him to go in and tweak the final mix on the drums, and Ted did, and Vinny loved it. And then that's where he was like, hey, listen, I'm working on a project with this guy. Would you like to get involved? And Ted sent him a couple of songs of mine. And he was like, yeah, I'm in. So that's how I got to work with Vinny, was through that Eugene Maslov record. The second engineer on that, my buddy Ted, fixing the drums to Vinny's liking. This is a great cigar. This might be this. So it's not as good as the Todos Las Dias, but it's up there. This is going to be like become my regular smoke. I think this is one of the best. What's my story? Ba-dum, here's a story of a man named Brady. In what capacity you want to know? I've been playing guitar since, I used to say 1981, but actually if I think about it, my mother had a teacher come to the house when I was in sixth grade. It was 1980. And I didn't want to learn guitar. I just wanted to learn Kiss songs. And basically, I just wanted to learn how to play Black Diamond. So that was where I started. I would probably say in midsummer of 1980. No formal training. When I was in high school, I always wanted to learn theory because I was like, well, I'd like to learn what the hell I'm doing. Because back then I was playing pentatonic stuff and figuring out like, a lot of rock stuff. And I'm like, I want to understand guys who go outside of that. And so I tried teaching myself some theory and I kind of got a little into it. And I figured out a system that worked for me, which was I looked at everything in its number form. So I looked at a minor scale as basically the 6 to the 5. I didn't think of it as the flat third, flat 6, flat 7. And a lot of times I don't, but I will think of it that way if I'm playing something and I want to play the minor scale over it. Well, then I'll think, all right, well, if it's, if it's minor, then it's flat third, flat 6, flat 7. Because I think of everything in relation now to 1 through 7. So, like if you think of like the melodic minor, a lot of people like, oh, you take the natural minor, you raise the 6 and 7. That's like jumping through fucking hoops to me. Why not just say flat the third? So if you took an A major scale, you have A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp. You want to make it melodic minor? It's A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp. So it's easy to think of it that way because then you get a lot of anything that doesn't have the C sharp in the chord, which is now the C, doesn't get affected. So when you think about the triads and everything involved, they only change by that C. You know what I mean? So your first chord, instead of it being an A major 7, would be an A minor major 7. The B minor 7 would still be the same chord. And then the next chord would be like a C augmented, right? Yeah, C, E, G sharp, because the C because it has a C in it. And then the next one would be a D, so that's still going to be the D, and it's going to be a D7. And then the 5 chord is going to be an E7. And then the 6 chord is going to be a half diminished, and the 7 chord is going to be a half diminished. So it really just affects a few of the chords, and you can think of it easier that way. But yeah, when I was in high school, I took a music course, and I asked a question, and then we argued about something, and he basically said, don't ask me any questions in class anymore. And looking back on it, I kind of think he did me a favor because I think he was just trying to appease the kids in the class, which the questions I was asking was way beyond what the average student in that class, because it was just a bunch of stoners trying to get out of a class. And I was there, to play, to figure stuff out, to learn. So then I basically studied everything on my own. And when I was 20 or 21 or 22, let me try to think how old I was. I think I was 21 or 22. I took several lessons from Joe Stump, who was teaching out of Berkeley. And that was interesting because that's really where I wanted to learn the picking technique of cross-picking better. And I got it out of like 5 lessons. It was good. But Joe would talk about music in a way that bothered me. And he was always talking modes. And I'd be like, yeah, but listen, we're playing the same scale. It's such a nonsense thing to say. If I'm playing A harmonic minor, all right, now if you understand A harmonic minor, you understand it's basically a natural minor with a raised 7, right? I look at it more like a minor with a flat 6. That's just how I think of it because I think of all the numbers as naturals. So when I say it's a minor, I'm telling you it's a flat third, and then I'm also telling you it's a flat 6. That's how I look at harmonic minor because I just look at it from itself. I don't look at it like, oh, we're modifying this. I don't look at it like that. So doing that, I'd say you got a flat third and a flat 6. So then he says, well, when you're playing E major chord, we're now playing the Phrygian, no, was it Phrygian dominant? Yeah, we're playing Phrygian dominant, which is like the same scale. So I'm like, we're just playing the same scale. I mean, you're not even changing the lick. You're playing the same pivot lick over an E chord and you're calling it something different. I'm like, that's just nuts. Just call something one scale. It doesn't matter what your tonal center is. It doesn't matter what your root is. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is we're talking about 7 notes. So if you're talking about 7 notes, talk about it and communicate it the quickest way you can. And for me, to tell somebody that the chord has one G sharp in it is to let them know that it's an A harmonic minor. That's what I would just say. What do I play over this E major chord? A harmonic minor. Does that mean you have to start on the A? No, it just means that there are 7 notes and the G is sharp. That's how I talk music and how teaching myself and not being formally trained, because some of these guys love to talk modes. And to me, they talk modes without understanding the circle of fifths. And if you don't understand the circle of fifths, or have them memorized, or not just memorized, but have them as a part of your, not to sound esoteric, but as a part of your soul, then you shouldn't even delve into modes because you're not ready for modes. If you're going to sit there and say to somebody like, oh, well, the Phrygian is the third mode, and we have a flat 2 and a flat 3, and we have a flat 6 and a flat 7, well, that's great. Now you're going to tell somebody, yeah, okay, great, play me B Phrygian. They're going to be like, what? When if someone says to me B Phrygian, to me I'm just thinking, well, it's the 3 to G, so I'm playing in the key of G. So 1 sharp, F sharp, everything else is natural. I don't have to think about it. I don't want to think about it. And I wouldn't even talk about it in modes. If somebody said to me, we're playing a B minor chord, and they're like, here's this, what scale do you want me to play? I'd say, play key of G. You can play an E minor scale. You know, and I tell people that all the time. Like, a lot of people don't know how to solo in major when it comes. I mean, they do like the rock thing, which is basically play the relative minor pentatonic and land on the 1, you know, that type of thing. What I call the from 60s rock on. But there are other ways. And if you took a backing track and you go on YouTube and you look up backing track, the C major 7 backing track, it's just a C major 7 the whole time, and then play a C major scale over it, you're going to see that the F natural sounds terrible over a C major 7. It's awful. And is it in the right key? Sure, if you're playing key of C. But I don't think, when I see a major 7 chord, I think of I always put it as the 4 chord in my head, because the raised 4 or an F sharp sounds nicer against a C sharp, a C major 7 than an F natural. So therefore, I'm playing in the key of G. Now, if I'm playing in the key of G over a C major 7, I'm a guitar player. How do we communicate? We love to talk in minor. I just tell someone, play me the E minor scale. Run up and down an E minor scale over a C major 7 chord. You're going to be happy as a pig in shit. It's going to have that F sharp, that sharp 11 tension, and everything else is just going to sound great. And it's a way to play stuff. You'll start to see things a little bit better, in my opinion, because you'll see the C, you'll see the A, you'll see the E, the G, the F sharp. Yeah, no, harmonic minor doesn't. Harmonic minor is not a scale that anybody cares about, except for 13-year-old boys watching Yngwie Malmsteen play guitar. No. But anyways. Yeah. Joe Harvey, if you're looking to pick up 13-year-old boys, let me suggest you the harmonic minor scale. That's who gives a shit about shred guitar and the neoclassical thing. Those work too. But anyways, so that's just some insight of like my music background and Modes is easier to grasp for peeps that don't really know theory, just like people instantly understand double stops instead of two-note chords. Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I think they like talking about modes. Understanding the modes, they don't understand them. They talk about them because they feel like that puts them in a special class. And just like tone wood, when people sit there and say, oh, mahogany this, and when you got a maple neck, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They're just talking because they think they're in a special group of people that know something. They've learned something from playing guitar, but they've learned nothing. They don't know anything. You blindfold them, they're not going to be able to tell you the sound difference between a rosewood fingerboard and a maple fingerboard. They'll guess every time, and they'll probably get it 50-50. Take it off and ask them what color the guitar is. They'll tell you every time perfectly because that they can tell. They don't know. And so, like when you sit there and people tell me about modes, they sit there and they know, yeah, do they know what the Lydian dominant mode, the Phrygian dominant mode is? I like Lydian dominant better. But do they know what Phrygian dominant is? Well, no. What they got to do is they have to think. They know it in certain keys. Yeah, sure, they know Phrygian dominant in E because that's the A harmonic minor. You know, you tell them, give me E flat or anything, and you're going to watch them stumble and try to figure it out because they don't know. They don't know what they're doing. They know the pattern, but that's not knowing anything. That's just playing a pattern. You know, I mean, even understanding, like I just said, Lydian dominant. Well, by Lydian dominant, you can automatically know what the scale is, because in Lydian dominant, Lydian is basically referring to a sharp 4 or a sharp 11, and dominant lets you know that it's a major with a flat 7. So then you know it's a sharp 4 and a flat 7. Well, where the hell does a sharp 4 and a flat 7 come in play? The four position of melodic minor. But you don't even have to think, because if you're sitting there playing, if I said to you play C Lydian dominant, you don't have to think anymore because I just told you it's sharp 11 flat 7. So that tells you that F is sharp and B is flat. That's your scale. 7 notes. It's not that tough when you just try to think of everything as 7 notes. It becomes real simple. And then when you think 7 notes, there's only 5 notes outside the scale. You know, so it isn't that tough, but I just like to think of everything as 1 through 7. It's easy. People love to say, oh, Mixolydian. Mixolydian's a flat 7. So if I said to you, play C Mixolydian, you know that B is flat. Everything else is natural. And if B is flat, what key is B flat? B flat is in the key. Only appears in the key of F with as the only flat. So therefore, you're playing from the 5th. You're playing from the 5. Really, C becomes the 5 to F. But that's having an understanding of what those notes are in a communicative way, where somebody tells you they want you to play something. I've done session work where I've gone in, and this was for, I think his name is Mark Isham. He wrote a song for the U.S. Army, and I did guitar on it. And the guy just wanted me to noodle about like a bluegrassy type of thing, and he basically said key of C. But the first chord was a G. So I knew immediately what he wanted. He just wanted that flat 7. You know, that you're playing key of G with an F, but he's saying key of C. That's how they talk to you. They're not going to sit there and tell you, well, I'd like you to play G Mixolydian. They're going to say, play the key of C. Okay, but the root is G. I get it. 7 notes. Key of C, no sharps, no flats. And of course, because it was bluegrassy, of course, I can use blue notes like the B flat to slide into the B. That of course is acceptable. Folks, the JFR Lunatic, made by Aganorsa Leaf. I got to turn Chuck on to this. It is spectacular. Right up his alley. Yeah, it's always funny too, like when people tell me, "Oh, you got to check out this band, you got to check this band out," and they'll say, "Oh, the guitar player is great," or, yeah, and I'm like, you know what? That doesn't drive me to get out of the house. If somebody says you got to check out a band and the drum is great, I want to see. I'm more into drumming. I like the sound of the drums. If the drum is tight and the band is and the drum is good, well, the drummer is not going to play with a bad bassist if he's a good drummer, and the band is going to be tight. It's going to be good. You know, as opposed to like I see guitar players play, and I'm like, how do they work with that drummer? Like, what makes you think that guy's good if he doesn't even realize that there's zero groove going on behind him? What is he doing in his band? I don't get it. Marshall amps. Look, I got no problem with Marshall amps. I don't love the sound of the. Yeah, I don't like the color of it. Yeah, Dylan, Bob Dylan. One of the greatest songwriters of our time. I just can't think of two songs that I love by him. Meanwhile, fucking Gamble and Huff wrote so many fucking songs I love. Anyone that says Bob Dylan's the greatest songwriter, Smokey Robinson wrote more great songs than Dylan ever did. Marvin Gaye. Smokey and Marvin, those two guys alone wrote some fucking great songs. Billy Joel. I don't think Dylan has a song that's as good as Anything on the Stranger. How's that? And Turnstiles is my favorite album by Billy Joel. Marshalls, you know, the thing that just drives me nuts about Marshalls is people who, oh, Stevie Wonder. Absolutely. You're going to compare Stevie Wonder to fucking Bob Dylan. You got to be crazy. Dylan can't even shine his shoes because Stevie can't see them. No, but seriously, Stevie's, I mean, that guy is God when it comes to writing songs. I mean, you think of his whole history. I mean, Songs in the Key of Life has more great songs on it than Dylan's career. Um, Tom Bell, the producer from Philadelphia, great songs, great songs. Lately, I've been listening to a lot of David Sylvian. I think he writes great stuff. Nobody in the States knows who the piss he is, but I'm a big David Sylvian fan. But, you know, the fact when people say Dylan's a better writer than Lennon McCartney, he's not a better writer than Lennon or McCartney. He's not a better writer than George Harrison. Oh, he's awesome. Sylvian's awesome. And his brother on drums, Steve Jansen, friggin' awesome. Just awesome. That's a great drummer. I watched this George Benson live that came up. It was Marcus Miller on bass, and Paul Jackson Jr. was playing guitar, and they were just, you know, just shooting the shit with George and going through his old songs. It was great. Marcus Miller on bass. I mean, there's a guy that's just in the fucking pocket. That guy's awesome. Just awesome. Yep, Neil Diamond did write some great songs. He had a great career. I love Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show, Shiloh, Play Me. That early 70s Neil Diamond I really liked. It became a little cartoonish when he did like September Morn, but I still love it. But there was like a cheesiness to it that I loved. Come, let me talk to you. You know, like nobody else could pull those songs off except for Neil. And then the Jazz Singer record, forget about it. That's gold. Beautiful. Yeah. The sun is like, it's in, it's out, it's in, it's out. It's going to get behind a tree in a minute, though. I'll be saved. So this month, I've cut out all my dairy for October. I'm just doing it as an experiment. And the experiment has taught me that when I eat dairy, it definitely curbs my sweet tooth more. I've noticed that I'm drinking more diet soda, um, but I'm also losing a little bit more weight. I know that the when I eat dairy, it maintains the weight. So when I get down to like 175, probably by the end of the month, I'll go back to dairy and maintain that weight. That'll be a good weight for me. Do I like what nut? I don't eat any nuts. I don't know what that is. Melanin nut? I don't eat any nuts. I don't eat anything that comes from the ground. People ask me the same question over and over again. They ask me like, will I eat this? Will I eat that? If it comes from the ground, I don't eat it. Pretty self-explanatory. If it had parents or come from a live thing, I'll eat it. So there you have it. Only when I'm invited to the Donner Party. Donner Party of four? I mean three? Two? Yeah. What else? Beautiful day considering it's been raining here the last 2 or 3 days. Any music questions? Any diet questions? Feel free. Jukebox Jimmy. Yeah, Jukebox used to work for me at West LA 2006 to 2007, I believe, or 2008, he may have left. And I knew him way before that. I've known him since '97. We both worked out at Gold's, and we were both good friends with the Barbarian brothers. Yeah, he wasn't on last week. I think he had something. He had something to do. Oh, hey Everett, how are you? Yeah, well, he's friends with Bingham. Um, so there's a natural conversation thing there. Same with Matt. Like Matt, I knew Matt when Matt came and worked at Gold's, and then Bingham, of course, knew Matt, and yeah. So I think the people, it's good to bring in some people that I know that know me in the real world, as I should say, as opposed to um, just for what I do online and stuff. I'm much funnier in person. No, I'm kidding. Where am I? All right, I think I may have lost the sun for good. It's behind a big cloud step, but then there's looks like it's going to go behind the house next to me. Great cigar. I can't believe I haven't even removed the band yet. So that's basically it. I have a gig. Well, I'll play next Saturday, but I have another gig, a bass gig. Somebody asked me to play on Thursday this week. I was like, I didn't know one song on the set list. And I'm like, I don't even know one song on this fucking thing. It's like all like 1940s music. I'm like, there's no way I'm doing it. What are we smoking? This is the JFR Lunatic, Joe. Joe, it's a great smoke. When they go on sale, I'll let you know because I think they can be pricey. I'm trying to think what I paid for. Like, I think I pay, or maybe it's like $6. No, it's closer to $7 a stick, which for online is too much. But really great, just great. I smoked a Cuban cigar today, a Cohiba Especial Limitada 2006. Um, it was a good cigar. It was good. A lot milder than I thought it was going to be. And then I realized when I read reviews of cigars on there, I'm like, I should just read what the manufacturer says it is because everyone's always like, oh, it's really strong. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. Let's see what else. How long do cigars last? Oh, years. Years. I mean, you could keep cigars in a humidor for 10 years. Joe, do you have a humidor? If you don't, I'll send you one. I've got 3 or 4 extra that I'm just sitting on now because that company sent me out a free one, and I'm really only using one of my wood boxes just to store my extra boxes. I have a box of wides that won't fit into my humidor right now because it's just so packed in there. Oh yeah, well you're in Florida, so do you know what those Boveda humidipacks are? Just get a small one and put it in there, like a 60 something, and it'll regulate the humidity. Oh, now the band's gonna come off. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, this is good. I like this a lot. A couple of cigars I've been smoking recently. It's funny. Some days I'll smoke a cigar and I'm like, this is great. Then another day I'm like, this one is just okay. But these always have been good. What else? What else? I know I gotta catch up on some movies. I'll probably do that after this. Watch a movie. I went and bought 5 dozen eggs today, a bunch of like 6 different steaks, chicken thighs. It's good. I try to get all my shopping every 2 weeks. I'm looking forward to November though, so I can go back to eating my carnivore cheesecake. That's so good. Oh, has anyone seen that Diet Dr. Pepper has come out with a strawberry and cream flavor? I'm just telling you right now, it's the shiznit. It's effing good. It is effing good. How do I cook the chicken thighs? So what I do is I put them in a like an aluminum pan. I skin side up, stretch the skins over so the skin covers the whole thing, and then I brush the skin with pork fat, with bacon fat, then salt and pepper, and I use white pepper, and I use a lot of salt, and then I cover it and cook it in the oven for an hour, and then take the cover off and let it go for another like 20 minutes till the skin gets super crispy, and it's the best. Then I take the fat, the chicken schmaltz. If you guys know what schmaltz is, it's chicken fat. And I pour it into a bowl and keep it in the fridge. And then anytime I'm having, like, when I make something, I'll add chicken fat to it and water. It makes it like it's soup. Oh, it's so good. So good. Yeah, it's great. Here, you have Costco there? I buy the Costco ones. It's like 16 bucks for like 3 times 6, 18. No, another 3. 3 times 9. So it's 27 chicken thighs for 16 bucks. It's great. Yeah, that's where I get it. Have you guys seen these guys on YouTube? They're called Jolly. The channel's called Jolly, and it's 2 British guys, and they go around tasting food, and then they sometimes give American food or other foods to British kids. But These two imbeciles, they fucking love everything. They went to Jack in the Box and their eyes are like lighting up like, oh my God, this is the first time it's having this is a great burger. I'm like, I've eaten at Jack in the Box many times in my life. Never once, never once did I ever think one item in that thing is worth a shit. It's just food that it's just convenient when you're starving and they're open 24 hours. Used to be one in Santa Monica. Well, there is one still, I think. Santa Monica, right at Lincoln and Santa Monica Boulevard. Otherwise, there's no reason to ever step into Jack in the Box. But these guys are eating Jack in the Box like, oh my God, we don't have this in England. You're fucking lucky. But then they went to a donut place and they hated the Boston cream donut. And they were like, we don't understand how people eat this. Yes, I understand that because you're British and you have no taste in food. The Boston cream is the greatest donut that it was ever made. You don't know how people like it, but you like the maple stuffed donut? Need I remind you of British food? Oh yeah, Tommy's on Lincoln and Pico. Or is that Tomas? There's a million different Tommies. But yeah, I think is that the one on Pico and Lincoln? It's right in that little kiosk looking thing in the front there. I'm like, shit, if you're already there, just take Lincoln all the way down to Washington Boulevard, take a left, and you're at In-N-Out Burger. And that's all you need. Yeah, I know that, Tommy's. It's right by Santa Monica High School. And they tore down that Arby's and put up a Wendy's. But I think Wendy's is garbage too. But anyways, these guys, this Jolly channel, it is entertaining to watch. But except that they have this Italian friend from Italy. And they have him eating like British Italian food. And the guy's just like, it's terrible. But it looks terrible before they even get it. It's like they try to find the worst stuff. It would be like if I sat here and I had a channel and I'm like, here's my Italian friend who's from Italy. He's going to try Franco-American. Well, what do you think he's going to say? He's going to say it's fucking garbage because it's garbage. Here's Kraft macaroni and cheese to a Michelin chef. Oh yeah, he's going to love it. Like, you don't need to make a video of it. We get it. It sucks. What else you guys got? Anything? If you haven't already hit the thumbs up button, hit the thumbs up button. Let me know you have a pulse. So this is my last month out of the year for doing carnivore. I'll be a year on November 5th or November 4th. November 4th, I'll be at a year. So this last month is why I'm doing the no dairy, just to do the challenge for it. But what a difference it's made, and just feel amazing. It's a different feeling. My brother's on it now, and I told him he'd be a certain weight we bet, and I told him he'd be a certain weight by January, and he's going to hit that weight in this month. And he's now fully compliant to that. He's like, yep, you're right. I'm going to hit it this month. Where in the beginning, he was like, there's no way I can get that low. I'm about to put on the king on porcelain throne. I'm barely functional today. Mikey didn't know. Oh, yeah. Hey, Strat Dad. So yeah, so that's why I'm doing that. So I'll hit a year. It's been crazy. Crazy. Oh no, I never heard from him. Nope. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm just going to move on. Like at the time, it's like, look, you asked to come on my show, you didn't come on. You sent me photos to use for the picture, I used the photos. What do you want me to do? You don't want to come on? Don't come on. You know what I mean? In all honesty, if you want to watch people talking about Van Halen, watch Johnny Bean. They seem to be infinitely fascinated by Eddie Van Halen. You know, infinitely fascinated with him. There's just so much going on. To me, it's like criminal when you think of like what Johnny Marr, those five Smith albums and the album he played on, and Electronic, his band, just the stuff that Johnny Marr has done, and people aren't even talking about him at all, and yet we're talking about Eddie, um, who was part of like, I mean, the excessive wankage, I would call it. And don't get me wrong, I call him King Edward. He was my favorite. He was my idol growing up, and my hero on guitar. Him and Jimmy Page. But you get older, and then you realize there's other guys like Steve Wariner, Uli Roth. Um, there's just a lot of guys that play a lot of great stuff and do stuff. Billy Gibbons. There's so many guys that it's like, and then when you sit there and you say somebody's the best, it's like, well, what's the criteria? Like Holdsworth, I think, is a phenomenal effing player. He was probably my number one as far as if someone said technically. And just because the musical brain of him, not so much what he's doing on the guitar, but musically what he's doing. And, Steve Lukather, Neil Sean. There's a lot of great fucking players that deserve some attention and um, some love as far as for what they did for music, you know. Because what Van Halen did for music was great in Van Halen. But what came out of Van Halen, which was all the hair bands, I could do without those idiots. I could do without, bands like Poison and all those hair bands of the 80s. Don't do anything for me. You know, I just, what can I say? Jimmy Johnson and Pete Carr from the Muscle Shoals Studios were awesome. Played on countless hits, guitar lines, and Steve Cropper. Guitar lines you've heard your whole life that you just take for granted because they existed. Michael Cimbello, when he was with Stevie Wonder, it's just fucking unbelievable. Buzz Featon was a great player. Played on a lot of big fucking important records. Paul Paul Jackson Jr. I mean, there's just so many players, you know. Nile Rodgers. I mean, come on. Guy is awesome. Awesome. Al McKay, Grant Giesman. Yeah. You know, people run out and they buy the Wolfgang guitars and all those guitars, and to me, they all have really narrow nuts, and they don't really feel great playing guitars. And they're great for Eddie because he made them for him. But you know, and all these people, they just want to like somehow they think that gets them closer to Eddie. Because I'll be honest with you, I was never a huge like I love David Gilmour, but I never in my million years would ever think like that's the guy who I'm trying to emulate. Because to me, I grew up on shred guitar, but I always thought the black Strat was the sexiest of all the Strats because he put that black pickguard on it. It's monochrome, like what do you call it, alapage. Everything's black. It just looks cool, and so the guitar looks cool. But and it's really not so much him because he. I mean, I guess other people play black Strats like that too, but you know, people go out and buy the striped Eddie Van Halen guitars. It's like, well, what are you gonna go out and gig with that thing? That guy must be an Eddie fan. He must really like Eddie. He has to play his equipment. It just seems weird to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. You know I like a good argument. Tell me I'm wrong. Nobody? This cigar's kindling a little bit. Anything else, anybody? Any other questions? Any other rants I can go on for your listening pleasure? I got to get back to doing more lessons on the acoustic now that I have a couple of songs that we're going to do an AM station. I may as well teach them so they're up there for me, basically. So if I have to remind myself how I play them. But so I got to go back and do a few lessons. I just haven't really felt like it. I think the last lesson I did was in June. I don't know. Is nobody saying anything? Is that why the thing's playing? Oh, I hit the. I didn't see all these. Hold on. I wasn't listening to Van Halen in the 80s. Yeah, I don't think they really hit. Oh, Dean Parks was awesome. Yeah, Luther and Carlton. I wasn't listening to Van. Nina Hartley just released a new scene. Oh, that's hilarious. A roll of black electric tape, and then you can peel it off later. Neil Young's terrible. Yeah, I'm not a Neil Young fan. I mean, he wrote a few good songs over the years. I'll give him that. But as far as a player goes, um, he's just the guy that was out there during that time. And yeah, yeah, I don't know. I mean, but the whole thing about Neil Young is like you like him as an artist, Ben. And liking somebody as an artist is a lot different than we're talking about than as a player. You know, I love Tom Waits. I'm not about to tell you he's the greatest guitar player or the greatest piano player ever, but I love him. Love his songs. I love his material. I love the artist. People. It's like the same people that sit there and say Elton John on piano is so fucking good. Is he? I think he's great at what he does. But I think you get any classically trained piano player up there, and they're going to be like, this guy can't play. So it's all relative. If you like him as an artist, like I've always said that about Eric Clapton. I'm not a huge Eric Clapton fan as a guitar player, but as an artist, I like him a lot. I like his voice. I like the songs. I like what he plays on the songs. Um, does it move me as a guitar player like David Gilmour or Jeff Beck? No, no. But I love him as an artist. When people sit there and say he's the greatest. Yeah, well, that's liking him as an artist, Ben. That's a different argument altogether. That's like I'm not a huge fan of his material. I think a lot of his songs that people like, to me, sound pedestrian. It sounds like he's just going through the chords, like he bought a Mel Bay guitar chord book, and he's just trying to fit every chord in the song. But when he did songs like "Down by the River" is a beautiful song, and "Harvest Moon" is a killer song. I mean, that's a beautiful. "Harvest Moon's a beautiful song. What can I say? It's a great song. You know. So if you're a fan of his, yeah, you're gonna love him. You're gonna love his stuff. It's just that stuff never connected with me that much, because I feel like those songs that I was turned on to him early, like "Needle and the Damage Done," is that what it's called? Is just I just hate it. "Cinnamon Girl," "Hey Hey My My." As a kid, it just turned me off. When Clapton needed a guitar player, well, I have to tell you, I like Dwayne Allman. I don't love Dwayne Allman. I like him. People say he's the greatest slide player that ever lived, and I'm like, really? In what vacuum do you live in? There are country guys who run circles on him. Leroy Parnell and all these other fucking smoking guys. Even guys that play like the dobro, like Jerry Douglas, I think run circles on him. But I think he was a good player. I think Dickie was a better player. I think Dickie is so unsung because Dickie lived and Dwayne died. But I think Dickie was the better player in that band. And I'm not trying to be a contrarian when I say that. I've had to go over these songs and teach a lot of Allman Brothers songs. And when I play the Dickie stuff, I'm like, oh, this is so much more interesting to me as a player, that it's more musical and I feel like he bends in tune better. Um, so I'm not a huge Dwayne Allman fan. And people, of course, that's going to rub people the wrong way. I think he was good. I like the songs he plays on. I mean, I love Derek and the Dominos. I don't know if did Dwayne even play on "Why Does Love Got to Be So Sad"? I think that's the best song on that Derek and the Dominos record. I mean, the Layla thing is cool. Honestly, if I had a chance and somebody gave me the tracks, all the raw tracks to that, I would go and tune those two guitars in Melodyne because they bother me. Just like I would fix Robert Plant's vocal on "Fool in the Rain." But that's just my preference. But, I like the Allman Brothers a lot. Although, most of the Allman Brothers songs I love, like I think Brothers and Sisters could be their best album, and that's without Dwayne. I'm trying to think of who the guitar player was that played on that with Dickie. I think it was Les Dudek. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I think it's Les Dudek on guitar on that record. Uh, well, let me say this to you, Ben. Do you think if Van Halen with David Lee Roth didn't exist and the Sammy stuff came out only with Van Halen, would Van Halen be revered the same way? My estimation is not a chance. Yeah, the solo and the guitar work in "I'm No Angel" was the guy who Dan Toller, who played in the early '80s, late '70s version of the Allman Brothers. Dan Toller plays the guitar solo and the guitar parts on "I'm No Angel," and those guitar parts are awesome. I think Dan Toller's a better guitar player than Dwayne Allman. I'll even take it further. I think Warren Haynes is. Yeah, Dan Toller's awesome. And that solo in I'm No Angel's fantastic. Musical, in tune, everything about it. It's just in the pocket. It's great. I love Dan Toller. Move away from show tunes. What's the show? What's show tunes? Oh, all right, Ed. Yeah, it's still Dan Toller. It's great. That Bannon, Bannon, Bannon. Oh, it's great. I also like the Allman Brothers song "No One Left to Run With Anymore." That's a great song off of it's like the '91 release. I can't remember the name of that album. No one left to run with anymore. Great song. I mean, the Allman Brothers, in my opinion, is Greg Allman. That guy's voice is just the shit. And they were great. But I do think Eddie was important in the Sammy stuff for the writing. Because, I mean, you could listen to Sammy with Chickenfoot, and Satriani is just talk about a guy that does nothing for me. I mean, he is just, it's not very, I don't know. Those songs are not good. Yeah, but there's always the people that live in when the people who die early, they become bigger than life. Hendrix, I mean, I loved Hendrix. Um, I like Band of Gypsies more than almost anything he's did, although I think Axis Boulder's Love is a great, there's some great songs. As far as the heavy, heavy songs like Foxy Lady, Purple Haze, I could do without hearing that for the rest of my life. But some of his beautiful stuff, like One Rainy Wish and Bold as Love and Castles Made of Sand. I mean, that's 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 the inspirational stuff for him. And people always like, could you imagine what he did if he lived? Well, Eddie lived. He did Sammy stuff. It got worse. You know. I even think Bob Mothersbaugh from Devo was a great player, and really did some interesting shit on those first 4 or 5 Devo albums. Yeah, yep, those are good songs. But if you said to me, I can't listen to Hendrix for the rest, I have to either listen to Hendrix or the Robin Trower record, Bridge of Sighs. I would take Bridge of Sighs. I like the singing better. I like the songs better. And songs are really what matters. You know, songs are everything. If songs weren't everything, Al Di Meola would be a huge hit, with everybody. But he's not. You don't know Al Di Meola's name unless you play guitar. Yeah, Angel's okay. Not a favorite of mine. I just don't think it's that great of a song. I like that lead guitar player that played in the Knack. I don't remember his name, but he was good. I mean, lots of great players and great stuff that has been in our ear hole, if you will, our whole lives. And a lot of people just take it for granted and they sit there and they're like, all right, well, let's talk about Van Halen again. It's like, really? Okay, talk about Eddie if you want. I would get more joy talking about Paul Buchanan from the Blue Nile. To me, there's more going on in a song like Let's Go Out Tonight. You know what I mean? It's so interesting and so heart wrenching and great. Yeah, no, I get it. The Hendrix thing for me is it's all about the songs, and the songs aren't there for me. With Zeppelin, it's the the songs are just awesome, just awesome. Yeah. See, for the 60s stuff, I like more of the breakaway from the 50s. The 50s, like rock and roll, was really based in blues. Whereas when you get to the 60s and you get the Beatles coming out, it's way more like a new songbook. Like if you take like the American Songbook, like the Julie Stein guys and the Johnny, like those type of writers. So when the Beatles came out, you had bands like the Buckinghams and Love and Spoonful. That stuff to me is awesome. The Turtles, just because they were playing, it was much more written around a melody. And I mean, even the Stones, like, the Stones, they came out, they were like a rhythm and blues band, but then they had songs like Street Fighting Man, and it's just like they stretched, they were breaking out of it and they were doing stuff with it. I don't really like anything new. I haven't heard anything that I like. I mean, the last band that I liked that I thought was fresh may have been either Muse or Mute Math. I thought those bands were cool, doing something different, melodic, and playing their instruments and sounding good. I mean, I think John Mayer's cool. Songs like Gravity is a great song. Um, I like it. I don't love it. Um, yeah. I don't know. You know what? I just lost interest in music as far as when the newest stuff. When I hear the production, there's zero headroom, everything's like in your face. I mean, even like the Foo Fighters, I think it's okay. Like I like the song "The Pretender," but overall, it's lackluster for me. It lacks something that I want to hear. Um, yeah, I mean, like I said, and there's a lot of talented people out there, and I hate to say that word because it implies they didn't do the work, but they did. So there's a lot of guys out there that play and can and play nice stuff. It's just the record company's not interested in it, so you're not going to really get to it. It's not going to be on a massive level. It's not something, you know, we live in a fucking backward ass world when people say "Baby, It's Cold Outside" is a song that should be banned, but "Wet Ass Pussy's" the number one hit. It's like, we're doing this? This is the world we're gonna live in. So music to me is a turn off, and really it's just because of it's just the machine of what we're being forced to listen to. And somebody like Clive Davis, who I think was really on his game in the 70s and the 80s, is somewhat responsible for the absolute uh, vapid music that's around today. That whole mindset. So that's my thoughts. But my opinion doesn't matter. It's just my opinion, you know. For me, if I'm listening to late 60s, early 70s stuff, I think there's more interesting things going on in the R&B world than there is in the rock world. I think what went on with Philly Soul and what went on with late 60s Motown, to me, that was far more interesting musically, song wise. It was just more interesting to me. In the 70s too, I mean, I love funk. I love all the, like Parliament, Funkadelic, Earth, Wind and Fire, the Ohio Players, Slave, uh, all that stuff. I dig it. Cameo, when Cameo was like a nine-piece band. I even love Cameo in the 80s. She's Strange is one of my favorites. Great song. I have to say, I like it all, but my whole point of bringing it up was I just think that so much people are like, the guitar world is like, since Eddie died, it's like Eddie, Eddie, even before that, but Eddie, 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 and I'm like Eddie's cool. Randy Rhoads did two albums, and those two albums are awesome. Um, Strange guys from like the same area, but there's also a lot of other bands around that time that were fucking great. The Police came out in 1978, and they were fucking awesome. The Police were fucking beautiful. Pretender's first two albums are fucking awesome. Awesome. So much good music around 1980, you know? I mean, even the Kinks in 1979, they did that live One for the Road album. Um, they were on top of their game that year. That was a great record. And then there's all the stuff out of England that never really hit here in the States. You got the Jam. The Jam were awesome. The Style Council were awesome. Um, Midge and that whole band there, Ultravox, awesome. The Smiths, awesome. Depeche Mode, awesome. The Cure, awesome. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that passed by the States, as Hugh says, and here in the 80s, he didn't really hear much Van Halen. I think Judd says the same thing. Like, you guys didn't get the Van Halen thing in London or in England or in Scotland. And there's so many bands that you guys did have that were fantastic that got zero love here. Cocteau Twins. I remember when I first got into them, nobody knew who the fuck they were. Awesome. Awesome band. Awesome. And then, of course, you have some, what I call the B-roll, the people that come out afterwards that kind of they would be like the hair bands to what Van Halen was, but you have like the Sundays, and you have Sinead O'Connor and the Cranberries. They're all basically doing what Cocteau Twins did 5 or 6 years earlier, and I think Cocteau Twins did it better. But you just didn't hear the same music, To me, Robin Guthrie on guitar is so interesting. And even his solo records where he just plays these ethereal guitar parts, they're beautiful. And it's so lush, and literally it's like, you got these guys doing ethereal channels, and they're playing like with delays and reverbs. It's like, yeah, that sounds good. You know what it sounds like? It sounds like Robin Guthrie 15 years ago. And Hugh, I'm sure you could fucking vouch for how good Robin Guthrie is. He's awesome. Awesome. Nobody talks about him. Nobody talks about how great he is or what he contributed. I got one more light in this thing, and this is going to be done. Oh, did I missed all this stuff? Great record. Yeah, I saw Mark King play again recently. Oh, Mark King is so unbelievable. You watch any of those live Level 42 and you watch Mark King, who not only is singing in fucking great time, but playing those fucking sick bass lines, and it's like, but no one talks about him. Yeah, I mean, I love playing funk music. It's so fun. Yeah, Mark King's awesome. I don't know why it like stops me from seeing some of these comments. Yeah, there's another one. Level 42 is another band that totally missed it in the States. We had 2 hits. Everybody in the States knows Lessons in Love and Something About You. But they only know it if you play it to them. If you tell people those are the names of the songs by Level 42, they scratch their head and go, maybe. Then you play them and you're like, oh, I know this one. Oh, I know that one. They don't realize that this band was one of the hardest working bands with tons of records out. Tons. And they were fucking awesome. Awesome. That was a great band. But yeah, no one talks about the players that really like went in and did interesting things, even though you may not know who they are. Yeah, the Midnight Special has some great ones. Some great ones. Although something came up and I went to watch it and I was like, oh, they're just lip syncing. It was AC/DC, I think, was lip syncing a song on the Midnight Special. And I was like, oh, why are they just lipping it? And you could tell because he's holding the mic like this and he's barely moving. And it was exactly the record. What the hell song was that? But it was an AC/DC song. Even in the 80s, remember Kajagoogoo? That bass line in Kajagoogoo's Too Shy was awesome. That guy was a monster bass player, too. No one talks about him. No one says boo. What do you think about Rerun getting from Hula? Rerun got what he deserved. There's a really good Heart concert that's on YouTube, and it's early. It's like the first or second record. They sound great. Cheap Trick was a great band. I've seen Cheap Trick live like 3 times. They were a lot of fun. Great rock and roll band. And Rick Nielsen's another one. Just great. And you know what? I got to tell you, all these guys, you talk about your Jeff Becks, you talk about your Hendrix, your Dwayne Allmans. Brian May is a fucking unbelievable guitar player. I think even better than those guys. And yet, because he's playing such song-rich songs, melodic, I think a lot of people overlook him. But he was doing, his stuff is not easy. And he's a fantastic player who, to me, should be talked about up there with the best. I mean, you can sit there and say all you want about Clapton, but I think Brian May is a fucking genius on the guitar. Genius. I mean, if you just listen to the album Sheer Heart Attack, and he's playing like Bring Back That Leroy Brown, or what's that other song they did on that record that he's playing? It's insane. I mean, his playing is stone cold crazy. His playing is just awesome. Just awesome. And people don't talk about him. It's like, you know, Tony Iommi, responsible for a whole genre of music. You know, you think about Black Sabbath, and Iommi's like one of the few guys that, like, with the first album's what, 1970, and 1980 his playing is even better. You go listen to Van Halen in 78, and then go listen to OU812 in 88. Tell me you think he's a better player on OU812? No way. It sounds tempered. It sounds like it's a more mature, mellower player. But Iommi came out of the gate in 80 and was just like, I'm going to fucking melt faces. Awesome. Awesome player. Awesome. Yeah, so many great players. I forget the bass player's name that played with Andy Gibb. But that guy's also, I think he's like Swiss or something. He's unbelievable. Yeah, I think it's better than Mob Rules. I mean, it's definitely, that's like a preference thing. To me, it's like which record. You could flip a coin, in my opinion, but to me, my coin always lands on Heaven and Hell. Volume 4 is a fantastic record, Ed. I mean, you look at Sabbath's first 4 albums. The first one, Paranoid, Master of Reality, Volume 4, they're all great. But Volume 4 is a fantastic record. And I think all the way up to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is a great album. That could be my favorite. Sabotage is where I think they start to show a little chink in the armor, if you will. Yeah, no, I mean, Ronnie's rhyming is terrible, but same with Country Girl. Slipping Away is great. For me, I mean, Mob Rules, the 2 tracks to me that really make that record fantastic is Sign of the Southern Cross and Falling Off the Edge of the World. I like Over and Over as the album ender, but I think Lonely is the Word is a better album ender, more haunting to me. I think that's the feel they were going for. Although on Dio's first solo record, Shame on the Night, fucking great. Fucking great. Yeah, Neon Nights. When I first heard that song and I was 12 years old, I was like, because at that point all I had was Paranoid. I bought Paranoid, and then Heaven and Hell came out, and I got that, and I was like, this is the same band. They're good here. I mean, I liked Paranoid when I was a kid. I always thought it was a little dark. You know, but again, at that time, the Cars were out. Elliot Easton, how fucking awesome was he? 3 albums in a row, the Cars killed it. Shake It Up is their weak album. where they decided, like where they fell off the ledge. But the first three, Cars, Candio, and Panorama, awesome. A 1, 2, 3 punch to the gut. Great stuff. Elliot Easton was awesome. Every solo fit the song like it was written out. It's like, it sounds like a song in itself. You could sing any song from the Cars, and someone will say, that's this song, or that's that song. You know, if I sat there and went, wow, wow, down, 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 you'd be like, oh, just what I needed. That says something to me. And like I said, the guy in the neck, that solo he does on My Sharona, I love all those songs. She's So Selfish, Good Girls Don't. Love that band. Yeah, but the Mob Rules is a different recording in the movie. They re-recorded it for the album. It's a different recording. The first Pretenders album had an impact. Yeah, the guys died after the second album. Yeah, the first Pretenders album to me is mind-blowingly good. Every song on that album, it is a perfect album. It is so good. The Weight, Tattooed Love Boys, Precious, Mystery Achievement, Private Life. Hey, Speed. Sometimes I ask why if the Doobie Brothers never do Unplugged. They've done like an Unplugged thing during COVID. They all did. They did like an acoustic of Black Water, which is sorry. They did an acoustic of Black Water. That's really cool during COVID. You should check that out, Johnny. And you can clearly see that he's doing Double Drop D. Well, we should have did that last night. It was a big crowd for that last night. I forget. Anyways, guys, this is the end of my cigar, and that means it's going to be the end of this broadcast. An hour and 52 it took me to smoke this cigar. That's great. All right, so this Wednesday, it's going to be the regular show, as every show is the regular show, with the regular cast back, which is the cast that only anybody wants to see anyways. We'll have Joe, Krell, probably Jimmy and Matt, and maybe Bingham again. And yeah, the PRS is gone. In that spot now is my, I put my orange G&L there. It looks like G&L made a new site. They made a new page that's on YouTube now, and Dave McLaren, who's the owner, is basically doing the videos, and Dave's a good guy. It's good to see him like more in the front talking about the company and stuff, because I think G&L makes some nice stuff. Marketing wise and what they put out for guitars, I think they could really improve and really do a lot, but I don't know what their thought is on it. I mean, they're pushing like I saw he was talking about the Commando. Is that what it's called? The Commando guitar with the Z pickups? And it's just not going to sell for people. There's just other things you could be designing and making that could be a lot better. But it's his company. And but he's a good dude. And I'm glad he's out there as the face now of G&L. And what else? That's about it. That's it. That's it for me. So I'm still kicking around the idea of the vintage sound amp, the 22SC. Watch some videos on that amp. That's really the sought after circuit for Fender, is that AB763. I think the Princeton is the AA1164. But exactly. Goodbye, Ted. Other than that, everyone, very good. Be well. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Get out of your house. Go do things. Johnny, have a great Sunday. Johnny, ease up on the. When Johnny goes live and he has the fireplace, maybe you show yourself playing guitar and singing. That's an enjoyable watch. When you start going on about the crime stuff, I mean, you're not privy to a lot of the stuff. Who cares? Honestly, the world's a sick place. It's always been a sick place. If the internet was around in the 1800s or 17, whatever the hell Jack the Ripper was around, you'd be going off on Jack the Ripper. It's life's too short. Enjoy yourself. Don't get yourself worked up on other people's drama. That's my advice to you. You can like Marshalls. That's fine. I like Marshalls. Like I said, the Marshalls with the when you pull the drive back on a Marshall, I like that clean a lot. It's got a little hair on it, and it's a nice sound for me. I like that sound. I think Marshall makes a great amp. They're not my favorite amps. As far as like high gain, I think the dual rectifier does a better job. And I think, obviously, I think Bogner makes one of the best amps there is. The Shiva is probably the greatest high gain amp, even though, the Uberschall or whatever the hell is supposed to be a higher gain. I don't want the gain so high that it becomes like just a compressed, like Bumblebee. Yeah, I mean, you could slam it with like you could slam it with a Boss SD1. Like I said, I don't like to slam it with overdrives that compress because, like, if you take a tube screamer in front of a Marshall, you're putting compression on an amp that I think compresses too much as it is, which is why tube screamers sound really good in front of a Fender, because Fenders generally are not really compressed sounding amps. So when you put a little compression on it, it sounds nice. When you put it in front of a Marshall, and people don't know, they're like, it's a tube screamer, it's the same thing. Like, people love that tube screamer, so they put it in front of Marshalls, and I don't love it. In fact, I'm happy just to play a Marshall just plugged right in. I think that's enough. But if you're looking for a little extra, then you want to put the Boss SD1 or something that doesn't color the sound so much or compress it. Another great one is there's a company called, am I going to remember the name of the pedal's called the Silver Solo. He's out of Chicago. I can't remember the name of his company. But it's basically a treble booster. That's great to put in front of a Marshall. Or a Vox even. Yeah. Yeah, again, Vox tend to be a more open sounding amp. So when you put a tube screamer in front of it, it adds compression that is much needed. Whereas the Marshalls already have a compressed sound. I call it a yellowing of the sound. That when I hear that compression, it's a metallic type of sound. And Marshalls already have it. So I don't like putting a pedal that does that in front of an amp that already does it. But a Vox, which is a clean platform, the Fenders that are clean platform, any clean platform amp takes those tube screamer pedals so much better. Clearly like a Dumble style amp, And same for the Klon. Like, I don't think the Klon doesn't have that mid hump that I don't like in the tube screamer. A Klon is probably a little bit better in front of a Marshall. Again, it's I guess if you play it with the gain off, it becomes like a treble boost. I mean, I think that's how Jeff Beck used it, as like a treble boost. But all those guys like Brian May and and Tony Iommi, they use treble boosters, which were I'm trying to think who made it. I'm blanking on it now. But Silver Solo, somebody look up who made Silver Solo. I can't remember the name of the company. The Silver Solo is a really good treble booster circuit. Or an RC booster. Which I think is better in front of a Marshall than, say, the AC booster, where I feel like the AC booster is better in front of a Fender. Just my opinion. I think the RC booster is a nicer one, less compressed for the Marshall. You can actually dial that in to sound like a treble booster pedal. What is this? What is she at? Oh. All right. Daredevil Effects. Thank you. That's it. Daredevil Effects makes the Silver Solo. And that's a great pedal in front of a Marshall. It's even good in front of a Vox. I think the Vox can get away with taking an uncompressed just by slamming it. And I do like the AC-15 more than I like the AC-30, but that's just me, just because you can get more hair out of it at a lower volume. But, yeah, what does that say? Nah, World Series, I don't watch baseball. I don't watch sports anymore. I'm done with sports. The only sport I watch is I watch um, snooker, European snooker. Anything with the Rocket, Ronnie Sullivan. Blink and you'll miss him, the Rocket. Yeah, that's all I'm watching for sports is snooker. Other than that, it bores me. Um, I lost all taste for it, and that's been for a few years now. Bunch of crybabies, not my thing. Anyways, guys, have a great day. I'm out of here. Very good.